Hello, I'm your host, Peter Komendowski, and welcome to Surviving Bad, where we explore stories of survival, hope, and inspiration. Now, these are conversations with remarkable people whose passion and ideas contribute to a better world. Today, we talk about water and how rivers shape the world with Mike Delaney, an outdoorsman, environmentalist, educator, and above all, a person passionate about the world we leave behind for our children. Mike, welcome to the show. Let's start off with you telling us a little bit about yourself.
Peter, thanks for the opportunity. This is great fun. I'm so glad we reconnected after being separate for, I don't know, 20 years or so like that. We kind of reconnected over paddling, which is a passion of both of ours. I grew up in Fort Wayne, Indiana. My father was an avid fisherman. He bought a piece of land on a beautiful lake. I didn't appreciate it at the time, but I do now. It was a glacial lake, natural glacial lake, but it had good northern pike fishing. So he was fishing on that lake, noticed a sign. He called the person, bought the land, built a cabin. And then I spent much of my formative youth, I'd say, from about 7 until 14, 15. I spent a lot of time fishing and hiking around the lake. And it was pretty pristine around there. There were areas that were very natural. It was on the border of Michigan. On the Michigan side, they really restrained development in cabins. So there was marshes, wetlands, inflows, just amazing diversity of life there. I had two older brothers, Tom and Jim. Both of them loved to tromp around through marshes and dried up wetland areas and catch all kinds of snakes and stuff. So I catching frogs and turtles and snakes was a big part of my activity when I wasn't fishing. So that was early formative stuff for me. I got involved in Boy Scouts. I had a wonderful scoutmaster by the name of Jack Root, who took us on adventures, mostly up in Michigan, paddling adventures, the Pine, the Au Sable, Pierre Marquette, Manistee, beautiful rivers, clean. I remember drinking out of the Pierre Marquette, just dip the cup in so those really shaped my attitude about nature. I experienced the beauty of nature extensively firsthand in depth. I got a degree in sociology. I was in the Peace Corps for 2 years in Grenada, where I did experience some virgin, untouched aspects of nature, especially out on some of the out islands. Just no evidence of anybody ever walking on some of the places where I explored the little tidal pools and stuff for all the kinds of incredible ocean life that was there. Returning home, I taught for a year in high school, went to graduate school, got a master's, came to DMAC and taught sociology, finishing up with teaching environmental sociology online for 10 years. I founded the Raccoon River Watershed in 2000 Association in 2005 and have been fighting to clean up the Raccoon River ever since, now with the help of the Isaac Walton League.
You mentioned the Pine River. I think when I was a kid in Boy Scouts and we paddled that, it was my first experience with getting a leech. So I learned about leeches firsthand as I pulled my leg out, and there were a couple of leeches attached to it from the muck.
Yeah. It's one of the more challenging rivers in the southern part of Michigan. The Upper Peninsula's got some wilder rivers like the Presque Isle, but the Pine above Peterson Bridges, you got to pay attention. You'll be bumping along in rocks.
Now, we really reconnected about water, and we reconnected about this sort of idea of legacy where we want to do something about what we're doing to this environment. But the interesting thing, there's a romantic side to this, which is the spiritual aspect of rivers and how they connect us. And I mean, it is terrestrial rivers too, but as well as I do that only 4% of our water on the face of the earth is terrestrial, and and majority of that's buried deep in aquifers, or in our Great Lakes, things like that. But the rivers are in our atmosphere, in our clouds, in our oceans, but where human beings touch rivers. I mean, when you think about where all the major cities are near water and rivers and all the exploration by the early explorers in America, now as we're looking back on our lives on rivers and we realize how precious that connection to being outdoors and experiencing lakes and rivers is, for our youth to be able to share, because there are many parallels to life. I mean, if you look at a map of the earth and you look at all the rivers and the tendrils of the rivers, and then you look a map of the circulatory system of a human being, all of a sudden, geez, these look really similar. It's no coincidence.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I mean, I brought you here to talk, but before we go to break, what really gave you the passion that I seen in our last conversation about rivers? And I know you looked at a new book that you got really excited about.
Yeah, I'll tell you about that later. It was important. Well, I grew up in Fort Wayne, where two rivers come together to form the Maumee. And I knew that river. I paddled to St. Joe. Recently, they really got busy over in Indiana, Ohio, and have cleaned up the Maumee. And my great nephew caught a 7-pound northern pike in the St. Joe River, and I never saw anything other than carp and catfish when I was a kid. So we can reverse. We have reversed the destruction of our rivers, and the Raccoon River is important, particularly to me, because I bought some land that the river runs through in Dallas County. So we'll talk about that later.
All right, well, let's take a short break. And when we come back, we'll continue our conversation. Look forward to seeing you then. You don't want to miss this.
This is how we do at MC22. 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 Providing you entertainment when you're bored out of your mind on our channel or the Plus and online anytime.
From the Quad Squad to the Spirit Lakes team, we bring your local action straight to your screen.
This is how we do.
Welcome back to Surviving Bad. We're talking about the myths and mysteries of rivers and waterways with Mike Delaney. Mike, you've done some tremendous work in central Iowa on the Raccoon River watershed, but this was sort of a passion that you began with years ago. How did it start, and what are some of the real instrumental aspects of that relationship to our communities?
Well, when I got here, I discovered the Upper Iowa River and paddled that a number of times with friends. And then my colleague John Leopa invited me up to see if I wanted to buy an old schoolhouse like he had done. And so Dell and I went up and decided this is a great idea to have a runaway place, but it's too far away. So we asked a realtor if he could find something in about an hour drive from Des Moines. He came up with a piece of property on the Raccoon River in Dallas County. So we walked out there and took a look at it, and we bought this 30 acres initially. It was cheap, there was a little piece of it that was in corn, but the rest was trees and slopes and just, you couldn't plow it. So it was considered to be kind of marginal land by the property owner, and they needed some money. That was, farm crisis time. So in 1988, we bought that piece of ground. And I was just wanting a place to camp and access the river. And in fact, the river runs through that property, 10 acres on one side, 20 acres on the other, mostly oak, savanna type, and floodplain. So, later in 1990, we built a cabin in the woods off the grid. So wood burning stove, no electricity, no running water, 2 stories, very convenient for people like you and me. We're used to sleeping on hard rocks in the boundary waters. I mean, it's cozy, by comparison. And most of my friends who are like you and me just love it. Some of the ladies are not too happy about going out in the woods, but it's great. But initially, we swam in the river, we waded, we fished, we paddled. It was great. But then we noticed that it was really getting kind of turbid, dirty, and especially in early spring, when you had the rains and the runoff, you could see all the hog manure and stuff coming down the river, and it really was sickening. So I talked to a couple neighbors up and down the river and some friends in Des Moines and some colleagues at DMEC, and we got together in the library in Dallas Center on early March, and 2005, and just decided somebody needs to speak for the river. Why not us? So that was it. Then we started the Raccoon River Watershed Association. We grew to about 300 members at one point. It's an all volunteer nonprofit, no staff, just people who care. So that's been my interest. I've learned a lot about the river. I'm interested in everything from macroinvertebrates to fish, and everything about the chemistry of the river. And the nitrogen and phosphorus are the big problems that we're dealing with.
But there's been quite a resurgence for it as a waterway, as a recreational waterway.
Well, there was a plan written by a graduate student at Iowa State, to develop that particular area into a water trail recreational area. You probably know the area from Minburn down to Adel.
Yep.
It's particularly interesting, that stretch. The valley's kind of narrow, high bluffs, deep holes, really an interesting stretch. And they didn't go ahead with that project, but there is an access called Snyder Access at Minburn, and then an access at Highway 44. So it's perfect stretch for about a 3-hour float. And
yeah, I've paddled from that upper access all the way down to Des Moines on the Raccoon.
Yeah, it's good paddling, really. But
it has a challenging riffles. It's very intimate in many areas, so you just feel like you're alone in the wilderness.
Especially around Adel.
Right.
The river went back to its old channel around Adel, which takes quite a bit longer to get around Adel, but you're in about half of the normal flow because the river splits there. And you're in some dense vegetation, all shaded, and, prothonotary warblers are in there and all kinds of great stuff in May. So I recommend it highly.
I remember a section in there we used to paddle through a big culvert. I wonder if that's still there. That was in the north. We're far up river on the.
Oh, really? Well, when you get up north, there are rock dams that were put in place that create oxygen, deep holes, and good fishing. And you can float them. You can shoot them if you've got enough water and you know what you're doing. Be careful there at Squirrel Hollow, however. You think you've got it done, and that river will just kick you sideways, and there's vortexes there. I mean, there's a deep hole, and the river is squirrely. I mean, you got to be careful going through that, but it's fun.
Well, we're going to take a short break, but when I come back, I'd like you to talk about the sort of intimacy about the relationship with the river and how important it is to bring children to that experience. Is that okay with you?
Absolutely. I've got grandkids that love that river.
All right. Stay tuned. We'll talk to you all after the break.
Local programming at your fingertips. Access to MC22 is easier than ever before and available to all MediaCom subscribers. Go to mc22.net, log into your MediaCom account, click Watch MC22, and then browse our catalog of local programming available for you. Anywhere, anytime. mc22.net/watch.
Welcome back to Surviving Bad. We're talking with Mike Delaney, not just about the importance of water and rivers, and there's just so much we could talk about. We could do hours of this show, but also that spiritual connection, the bond that we create. Mike and I both have that in common. When we go out on a river trip, sometimes the science becomes secondary to the heartfelt emotion of just being a part of this great movement of water and the relationship to all the creatures there. And we both have grandchildren and had children that we raised giving that experience. I worry, Mike, that we're not doing enough of that. Too many kids are locked in the computers and everything else and not getting outdoors. How powerful is that messaging when you get kids out in nature, and why is it so important for parents to reconnect them?
Well, one of my best experiences was when I was a scoutmaster with Troop 50 in Des Moines at Plymouth Church. I convinced the board that we should take the kids up to the Boundary Waters. So we put in there at the scout camp on Moose Lake and took the kids out. And these are kids that hadn't had much cat paddling experience and not much experience in wilderness, maybe no experience in wilderness. And I know that that experience for those kids over the 3 years that we did that will live with them for the rest of their lives. You know it, I know it. Once you've experienced wilderness, clean water, nature in the purest form that we've got around here in the Boundary Waters, that really stays with you. With my own kids and grandkids, they experienced the Raccoon River and caught turtles and picked up mussels and fish and wandered up and down. And my grandkids too have had that intimate experience with nature and the river. And yes, I think it is sad that our children are indoors as much as they are, on their computers and phones as much as they are. I mean, 6 hours a day or whatever is the average. It is so different from my experience. I was born in 46, pre-television, and we were doing projects. We were outdoors, we had to be in when the street lights came on. That was when we had to be in the house. But we were running around outside, and entertaining ourselves in all kinds of ways. And then at that lake cottage, there were a bunch of friends my age, and we explored together. A lot of fishing and, a lot of experience on the water.
Oh, we know from that there are a lot of parallels to health and mental health, and in working with populations around the state with mental health issues, which are getting, attacking a younger and younger population of Americans every year.
Yeah.
Some people attribute it to what's happening with media, but it could also be attributable to the fact that not spending time in nature. Because what we're finding is that there is a very deep connection between the wild spaces in nature and the wild spaces in a human being. In other words, the lessons you learn translate to an understanding of yourself. And so we see a lower incidence of mental health issues, suicide, ideation, and things like that with kids that get outside more.
Yeah.
And I think if that message got to parents, they'd realize that, healthier than doctors or medication or anything else, that connection to nature could be one of the greatest healing powers, because we felt that and we know it. And we know how it recharges us and we know how it inspires us.
Yeah.
But again, it's not like, I mean, now we have some science happening, but it's not like it, that's here's the handbook for parents on how to raise healthy kids, because we didn't know how much mental health problems would emerge from the way the world was transitioning to all this media. But one of the short fixes is connecting. And what we also see is that family bonds become stronger when they do nature together. But a lot of parents are afraid because they didn't grow up getting outdoors like we did.
Yeah.
Now you work with the Ikes. Does that get parents and kids out there and help, get that connection sort of built?
Yeah, probably the best thing we did along that line is the Des Moines Isaac Walton League has sponsored an outdoor exposition for the last 15 years, and we invite the general public to come and experience what the Ikes know: fishing, hunting, outdoor activity, camping. And one of the things that we did very successfully over the years was introduce families and kids to paddling over in one of the ponds there in Waterworks Park. And it was interesting too that there would be people from around the world. A lot of our new immigrants had no experience at all in canoes. And then some of the kids from Africa, were really fearful of what was in that water, because where they came from, it was dangerous stuff, right? Fear of alligators and all that. So not only with our own little kids that are so excited to get out on the water, and especially those teenagers that could learn to paddle on their own. They'd be two of them would be out there trying to figure out how to get from one place to another. We had experts like you out on the water with them in case they did get in trouble. But all of that, the thrill of being on the water, They wanted to get in the water. We had trouble with that. They wanted to dump so they could swim around, but we'd have to control that because of the danger involved. But no, that was really those are really good activities that we were involved in. In my life, I was thinking too, when you're talking about that, the farm kids of old with their chickens and their hogs and their cows and their horses and all, and with the wildlife that they had to defend against to protect their crops and their gardens and the hunting. I mean, that culture too, Peter, was so powerful in Iowa. Those people experienced nature intimately through their farm experiences.
Yeah, that makes Iowa a special place in many ways, though we know we need work like that watershed committee to keep things pristine and clean for kids. So we're going to take a short break. We come back. Mike, I'm going to ask you to share some final comments, insights, and inspiration for our audience. See you all after the break. You don't want to miss this.
Mediacom Mobile. You'll love the service and the savings. Unbeatable nationwide coverage. Unlimited data. Unbelievably affordable. Switch and save 30% or more over the top 3 mobile providers. Get unlimited mobile for just $40 per line per month. Bam. No hidden fees, no contracts. Switching is cake. Keep your phone, keep your number, everything you love, except the big bill. Mediacom Mobile. Call or shop online.
I don't remember how it started.
What's that?
Our back and forth. It always came back.
Dad!
You probably don't remember what you told me,
That was perfect.
but I heard every word.
Today on Surviving Bad, we literally dove deep into the significance of water and rivers and the intimate bond they share with our quality of life. Let's see what insights and inspiration Mike has to share. Mike, the floor is yours.
Oh, thank you very much. Well, Peter, there's a lot of good news in our arena along with the bad. I think we've kind of hit bottom in Iowa in some ways with regard to environmental destruction and destruction of our rivers and waterways. Part of it has to do with organizations stepping up. And I'm most proud of Neil Hamilton, who was at the Drake, Agricultural Law Center for 30 some years. Now he's retired, but he's put on these nature summits. And he's bringing people who care together and new people who need to learn together to learn what we know about the condition of the Iowa ecology. It's a pretty serious effort, and he's tying together a lot of organizations been around. The problem in Iowa is we have a lot of conservation organizations, but they work independently. A lot of them are funded by the same organizations, so they're in kind of a competitive relationship. We have the Iowa Environmental Council, which attempts to bring people together for common purposes like protecting public lands and so on. Looks like my dog wants to get involved. Eddie, lay down. I've got a Labrador that gets a little jealous when I spend too much time on the screen here. So say hello, Eddie. Eddie he's kind of a media hog. He loves.
Hello, Eddie.
Okay, Eddie, go lay down. So Neil gave me a book. Neil Hamilton gave me a book that I've been reading, and I really want to recommend it. It is called Is a River Alive? And it was a question put to him by his son as they were exploring a river. And he thought deeply about that, and he tells in the book about a movement started in South America to recognize natural areas, including rivers and forests, as having rights, like human rights. And so I've been reading that book, and there are a couple concepts in there that I want to share, Peter, if it's all right.
Of course.
One is hits home with me because of the Raccoon River Watershed Association and your and my and others' advocating the idea of thinking in terms of a watershed. We all live, he says, that everyone lives in a watershed. Well, do you know what watershed you're in? The water that comes off your roof or down your driveway goes somewhere. It goes into a tributary to a watershed. And every one of us has a role to play in trying to protect the quality of that living river. Rivers are so full. The raccoon, too. People say it's badly polluted because of nitrogen, which is true. But it's got 40-some species of fish in it. I mean, there's so much life in that river that, need to be protected. We do have rivers that are dead on this planet. We have we have mining companies particularly going after gold that use arsenic and other chemicals, and they really do kill rivers dead. And what a tragedy after the millions of years in some cases that the water has been flowing in those channels to kill it. And with some of the stuff that falls into the substrate, it stays bad for a long, long, long time. The best news, Peter, for all the people that might be paying attention to this is if you leave a river alone, it'll fix itself. Mother Nature fixes itself if we just stop killing stuff. You leave it alone, it'll regenerate. And I've always said in the raccoon watershed, if we can protect one tributary and keep that tributary as healthy as possible, when we blow ourselves away or we kill ourselves and the nature can get back to work, that one tributary can reinvigorate an entire system with the life that it remains in there. And it will, as long as when we stop killing it for whatever reason, economic, whatever, suicide, whatever we do.
Mike,
airways.
I love it, man. And that's what makes you one of Iowa's remarkable people. Not only are you a veritable well of information about Iowa, but you understand what needs to be done. You're sort of a human tributary for ideas to make some good things happen.
I like
so
that.
thank you. Thank you for joining us today, and thank you all for watching. Watch MediaCom MC22 and MC22.net for all of our episodes of Surviving Bad, where we explore stories, survival, hope, and inspiration with some of Iowa's most remarkable people on MediaCom MC22, your local programming leader.